Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
And we spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn how to turn content into profit, just go to contentsprofit.com. Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. Guys, today we have an incredible, epic guest and conversation. We're going to be talking about, can creativity be streamlined?
I feel like this is a topic that we've chatted about in the last 2 weeks, like almost every single day. We talked about creativity, frameworks, different things. But this is so good because the people behind camera are helping us in our process with our team. So I can't wait. And the individual itself, he has such an amazing, I think, like abilities. Like there's nothing he cannot do.
There's literally nothing he cannot do. I think he's a very skillful person, but at the same time, he's a person that he is just an applied person. Like you can tell he's a hard worker. He has built something incredible, and we want to share with the world.
Yeah. FONZI, before we get started though, do we have a sponsor?
Indeed we do. Thank you so much for asking.
You're welcome.
Today's sponsor is your own, the BIZBROS with content momentum. And you might be asking yourself, what is content momentum? Well, if you produce a long form piece of content, just like this one that you're listening to or watching, and you need a modern media team to come into your business and help you turn that content, leverage it so you can amplify your message, right? Then you can turn it into multiple value pack bite-sized assets, and you can send them into the interwebs like little minions to get you some more clients. We want to help you out. So slide in the DMs at BIZBROS on Facebook, on Instagram.
That's right, guys. And if you enjoy these conversations, go ahead and follow the podcast in your favorite platform. And also follow us on social media at BIZBROS, where all those golden boulders are being distributed every single day.
That is right. And if you find today's conversation impactful, if it helps you move one step closer to your goal, or if you know of anybody that this conversation can help move one step closer to their goal, please, our only ask is for you to share this episode with them and to leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode. Today's guest doesn't only have an epic beer, but he also has what the contemporary meme culture would say, a big brain. Yes, today's guest is one of those people that can literally do anything. I hope you are as ready as we are.
You are 100% right, my friend. When we first talked to today's guest, we thought he was actually a salesman of a software, but immediately we discovered that he was the genius behind it all. We bonded over a few pieces of Lego, and then we quickly became fans, not only of the software, but we became fans of him. Today's guest is no joke.
Not only that, he has actually been part of growing and founding several companies. He has an incredible understanding of processes, which has allowed him to build this incredible software that even Spotify uses. But more on this in just a moment.
That is right. Please welcome Lego Master, the bearded genius, and founder of Iconik, Mike Szumlinski. Welcome,
Mike.
Mike.
How's it going?
Did we crush your last name?
No, you nailed it, man. It's as close as you're gonna get without like actually being Polish. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there.
How does it sound if it like with the right pronunciation?
So the right way is not the way I say it anymore because nobody gets it right. But it's Shum. The SZ turns into SCHU. Right? Like so it gets.
Szumlinski.
All right. Interesting. I don't say that anymore because everybody butchers it as soon as they try it.
Yeah, between that and our accent.
That's
it. We
rough.
have our odds against us. Dude, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I mean, we met every single world there, and you have been so helpful in our process, and we're going to dive deep into, what is the thing that we're actually doing together, which I feel like...
Before we dive into that, I want, for people that are just listening, real quick, sorry.
I was about to say that, bro.
I don't know if we're going to say the same thing, but before we dive into, all this goodness, Mike, I want to paint the picture for those that are just listening and not watching. And for those that are watching, pay attention. You see that saxophone in the back? Mike plays the saxophone. You see those guitars in the back? Mike plays the guitar. And not only that, he builds guitars. And I'm sure all the stuff on the back there, he's also great at using it. Mike, I'm surprised. I'm telling you, like...
You've caused an impression on FONZI,
I'm gonna have to live.
guessing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to live with you for like 2 years to see, if I can learn a little bit of all this stuff.
Man, I've been living with him for a bunch of years. I don't recommend you accepting that offer. Just gonna say that out loud. But Mike, you're obviously a founder of the software Iconik. Incredible software, by the way. We've been using it for quite a bit now. It has eased our content creation and production process so much, right? But when we chatted with you for the first time, you said that there was different things that you were doing before founding Iconik, and I'm curious a little bit about your backstory. Like, how did your entrepreneurial world started? Your software creation started? Was that always inside of you, or what was it? Like, how did this adventure start?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm not the founder of Iconik, but I'm one of the partners in the business. So I don't want to take away from my other partners that are much bigger brains than I do, right? Like, so let's.
Well, we haven't seen any of them, so I'm just saying, like,
I tend to, because they're so smart that we keep them locked in a room.
Yeah, right?
Exactly. Of course.
Is if they get out, then
that's
things start to slow down. I'm just the charismatic dumbass that's out here talking to everybody, and they're the ones that are doing the hard work.
Oh, I love it. Huge shout out to the team. Absolutely. Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that, man.
But so I've been I actually, believe it or not, went to college for audio and media production. And this is back in the late 90s when, I still had classes on linear editing. I'm sure you guys are a little young for that. But when you do your first tape to tape on a beta, give me a ring. There'll be some fun nostalgia for you in like 10 years.
Yes.
But believe it or not, what ended up happening is right around the late 90s, I ended up getting a gig for a little company that's now pretty well known called Apple. And they weren't doing all that well in 1997. I don't know if you guys know the history of that, but I was that weird kid that had a Mac in college, and everybody else, they're all PC guys, and they had their Pentium 2s, and they thought they were super cool and all that. And I was the one screaming from the rooftops, the opposite of it, and ended up getting a job working for them for a while. And that kind of parlayed me into realistically the technology behind media and entertainment.
Yeah.
Because I actually started school for software development, and after about one semester of staring at green UltraSpark screens, man, I was just like, I can't do this full time, but I still have a heavy interest in it. So I want to use these things to do stuff, to create things, not just to, build, right? And so the rest is kind of history from there. I took off, worked for a Fortune 500 for a while running creative IT, actually. So large company, all their designers, all of their creative folks, the guys that did everything from store layout to design of product itself and everything like that. And they were all on Macs, and then all the bean counters and, sourcing people, they were all on Windows boxes. And then from there, I actually got involved in the media and entertainment channel and started working with companies like AJA and some of the other ones. Awesome. And that kind of flipped me into the networking aspect of this business and getting to know people. And that's when I started my first company, which was wholesale for different software products specializing in media production. And then that's how I met up with the other founders of Iconik, and we partnered up because of that position and knowing each other and moving on from there. So it's been a fun journey over the last 15 plus years.
Yeah, I honestly did not realize it was that lengthy. But honestly, I thought you were like 22, man. No, I'm kidding.
You see the gray, man?
The gray threw me off a little bit. But no, honestly, I'm surprised. And that's so incredible that you were even part of, Apple. You have all these experiences, Fortune 500 companies. I'm curious, what has been, or what do you think has been a few of the lessons that has stuck to you that you have brought along in your journey to where you are right now?
I think the number one is, if in 1997 you have the ability to buy a Honda Civic or buy Apple stock, buy the Apple stock. I didn't. I bought the Honda Civic. It did not appreciate at quite the same rate.
That's tough one.
Realistically, I think one of the biggest things is I've got a couple of credos, when it comes to this sort of thing. Biggest one is know what you don't know, right? Be aware of where your own shortcomings are, because if you're not aware of where you're not any good at something, you'll never be able to improve because you already believe that you've mastered whatever that is. Yeah. And that kind of ties into the idea of like, you're never the best at anything. You can be better than a lot of people at things, but there's always going to be somebody better than you. And if you don't have that mentality, you'll stall out eventually in what you do.
I like that, man. I like that growth mindset that you have. And honestly, and I don't know if it's any related, and you can tell I'm extremely surprised, but I think that applies to anything that you do in your life because of probably all the things that you've been able to pick up and learn, right? You're like, you know what? I'm not the best one. I'm just going to put my head down, work here, make an effort. And I mean, you do some incredible things.
Yeah. Mike, one of the things that, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, that like, to be perfectly honest, that whole mentality is a big part of what I try to just instill in everyone else. And I'm a big fan of like empowering people to do more than what they think they can do. You know, if you empower people that either work for you or work with you, or even any degree of the kind of business landscape, to be able to do what they want to do, they'll find their own logical limits. But if you put imposed limits on them, well, then they're limited right out of the get-go.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's really important to let people be themselves, point them in the right direction when things aren't going too well. But beyond that, let people be people, and you'll get the best out of them, regardless of the situation, whether it's business or personal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love it, man. Through your story, you mentioned that you were, I imagine you kind of a bridge between the IT technical side of things and then the consumer side of things, right? With different things. And you know, in the world that we live now, that every company needs to be kind of like a media company, right? It's very intimidating maybe for people starting in this, maybe with their own streams, with their own podcasts, with their own like video production, right? To bridge that gap between technology and the end product, right? The consumer side of things. There's tools out there that allow for people to kind of get started, right? What have been, has that always been there? Are there elements that you kind of started using with your own staff or the people that you work with, or even with the customers, right? To bridge that gap between technology and the consumer?
Well, I think the big one there is, you know, make the key to having good software or hardware or whatever it is not necessarily just solving the problem. It's in making it intuitive enough so that you don't have to think too much about it when you're trying to learn it, right? Every tool you're going to have to learn how to use. You know, when you were 2 years old and you picked up a screwdriver, you probably just thought it was for stabbing and not for turning things in and out, right?
I can. Like, yes, that is true. Fonzie did chase me with a screwdriver once. Yeah.
But that whole kind of concept and that vibe is, you know, really a big part of developing things properly. So, you know, within our world, you know, I can speak specifically to and around Iconik. Iconik is kind of I would almost say, you know, secondary iteration where we learned a lot from our other product, which we still sell and have out there and everything like that. But the reality is that we saw opportunities for starting from scratch, more or less, to solve a different problem set. Yeah. And the reason why was because we learned, hey, this thing does do very well at these things over here, but to get it to do these things over here, which people are asking for now, you know, do we duct tape that back on to what we're doing right now? Or do we start from scratch and say, okay, we're going to build a hammer, not a screwdriver, right?
Yeah.
Still holds things together. It's still, but it does it in a fundamentally different way.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally different way is how, you know, the growth for us has been so strong, because we're just not approaching it the same old way again. You take that thing and you turn it like this and look through the viewport a little bit different. And then there's a risk there, right? Like that's, I think, another big important part of any business is like, you're never going to be truly successful if you play it safe. You gotta roll the dice to try to, you know, put your idea out there and see if it sticks. Because if you don't, you're just going to copy everybody else, and then you're going to be playing catch up to somebody else that's already doing it.
Yeah, I love it because this is one of the things that we've been chatting lately, like in the last few weeks. For some reason, it has been the topic that has been coming up, right? And for those listening, right, if you have a business or if you're launching a product, right, or if you're serving an audience, what Mike, you just said is so important, right? We so often like put something out there and we think that is a final version of the thing that we're actually going to be doing, right? Like in our personal story, and we could not be further from the truth. Like that is a starting point because we're going to get feedback and we can reiterate like you guys did with Iconik, for example, the software that we're currently using. But for us, for example, like we started doing vinyl stickers, right? Then we did screen printing because we got feedback. And then, we hated the process of the t-shirts. Thank God there are people that love that thing. And then it evolved. And inside of the content itself, also today, that process has evolved, which the one that we call today is M2M. So for those listening, right, if you're launching a product, if you're launching something for our community, right, grab feedback and then you can get better, or you can build something entirely different, right? And we're at a point in our business too that is something that's happening today as we speak, right? So before we only had the service, right? We're launching a workshop for our audience. The people have been with us in our challenges or stuff. That is a completely different product as far as like execution goes. The principles and the frameworks are very similar to what the service looks like, but it's different. It came from feedback, just like you guys did, right? So I just wanted to paint the picture a little bit. If you're listening, right, and you're in that moment, like what is the feedback that we're receiving? Is something that we can add to the current product, right? Or is something that is a different solution that we might be ignoring? And I love what you guys did with Iconik. How was that process for you? What was an indicator that you guys needed to create something completely new? I mean, that was feedback, right? I don't know if it's completely new because I don't know the other software, right? But it's a different product. What was one of the key indicators that we should be looking for?
Well, I think what we saw, and the single largest reason we kind of went down the path, was we had a lot of positive feedback to the other software, but just because of the way it was architected, it required a lot of heavy lifting and knowledge, right? So you had to know a lot of IT stuff. You had to have that ability to set up servers and stacks and, build network databases and all the kind of heavy IT stack stuff that traditionally has not been a strength in media and entertainment. Even at larger environments, they don't have Linux super admins on staff until you get into the really big organizations oftentimes. And what we were seeing is that we would show the product off to the end users, the people that would ultimately be using it, and they would say, "This is awesome. We love this." But the people that were actually going to be maintaining it would say, "We don't have the knowledge or the budget to actually implement this, even though, all of our users would love to have that." And especially in the smaller businesses, right? Like when you're talking big enterprise businesses, that problem tends to go away because they do have that kind of staffing. But you guys, right? A smaller shop, or even like a 5-person post-production shop where somebody's running the books and one guy's a camera guy and everybody else is doing everything else in the facility. You don't have a Linux sysadmin and DevOps guy on staff, and you're not going to be able to afford one easily. So we looked at that feedback and that said, hey, this solution is something we need, and we had to figure out how to democratize that. And that meant changing a few things in as far as how it would work in general. And the single biggest one was it had to be a software as a service tool, because that's the only way you can really democratize that sort of thing at scale. You have to manage it yourself, and you have to just make it available for people to get into and use right away and not have to worry about the stand-up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, it was definitely customer feedback. And actually, it was more potential customer feedback, because the customers of the product still loved it. And we still got paid for it, and everything went great. But it was the amount of customers that we saw that wanted it and couldn't afford it. So it was, we wanted to build the better mousetrap so that they weren't overridden with mice, because they were when we were running the way we were before, to a certain extent.
Yeah. So for those listening, right, like if you're like right now, everything sounds super confusing and I have no idea what you guys are talking about, right? Let's describe a little bit of Iconik. Like what is the tool, right? Because here's, I'm going to do like a pre-story on like how we landed with you guys and what was our need, right? So when we first started as a freelancer, right, we're not technical at all, zero. We don't know how to code. We don't know how to do any of that fancy stuff that you know how to do very well, right? But when we first started editing, right, like FONZI here started using the Creative Suite and editing all these awesome videos, right? And as we evolved the process, we started working based off a framework, right? We do have a framework that is about 7 stages to create the content that we do now, right? So we do long form interviews like this one phone, right? And then that gets turned into every single month around 400 pieces of content, right? There's a process that we follow, and because the process is in place, it facilitates. And then as we started to create these frameworks, right, we start plugging in tools in each of the stages to make sure that we could execute on those stages, right? So once we did that, right, we started adding different team members for the 7 stages that we had, but there's still different tools, right? So as in, we started very basic as in with Google Docs for something that we call value index, right? There was a transcriptions aspect of the video itself, right, that we had to do with a different software, XYZ, right? Then we had to pick what is the information that we're actually distilling from this video to be able to multiply that message. How do we edit this? How do we design around these videos, right? So there's different tools in different stages, right? This took us about, a few months to kind of discover and optimize, right? And then I remember our main video editor, Rafa, he was like, guys, there's this tool that we're using, right, with other type of clients, right, that I think it will be really, really beneficial for you guys. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And because we were operating in a framework, right, we could apply this tool to our process. And when we came to Mike, we were like, man, this is what we do. We can explain it. And he's like, oh, sweet. Here's how you do it in this tool. So now 5 different tools that we had in the 7-stage process are combined into your one software. So we're like, oh my goodness. And this is, going from raw video kind of goes in, all the data is in there. We can work from different locations in the world because our team is all over the world, right? With we could use the same files, proxies, and I've been learning a lot of the language lately. And, they're versions of the main video, but there's not the main video kind of. Is that a good, how he explained it? You can explain in just a second. And then from there, right, like we can distribute this content to either the client or ourselves or stuff. And everybody works within the same platform with the same data, same feedback, and it's super streamlined. So that was the description of how we got to you, and we've been using it for this last month. So I want to encourage everybody listening, go back to your own process and see what is the framework, what are the steps that I'm following, right? And then what are the tools? But for us, that we're not technical, that's why we went from frameworks, because we didn't base our process on different tools. And now we can plug in something so powerful like what you guys do, that it works seamlessly, and it saves us a ton of time, right? So the team is super happy. Obviously, we are super happy. So that's kind of how we got to you. Now, from the mouth of the expert, Mike, that's you. How would you describe Iconik to the listeners?
Yeah, so we kind of talk, what we call it at the end of the day is a collaboration hub.
Yeah.
And our goal for the tool was to allow our customers to organize the stuff that they have, right? Whether it's pictures, audio, video, really doesn't matter. It's generally creative content of some sort that has some sort of visual or audio feedback loop in it. And by feedback loop, I mean, you have producers, you have editors, you have modifications, you have versioning, you have things happening in a creative workflow. You are producing content, much like you would build a car and bolt the seats in and bolt in the steering wheel. You're overlaying the lower third and you're cutting in and you're color grading and all these different things. And we want a place where, there could be a source of truth for where all the content actually lives. And then the people that are doing all the various different parts can kind of get in and do the parts that they need to do as unobtrusively as possible. And that means, hey, if you're a producer and you're just marking up and making notes, right? Okay, cool. You can do that. You can make time-based comments and things on video and not have to know anything about codecs or how editing works or anything along those lines. Hey, you're somebody that's taking transcription data and turning it into an index, like you guys said, right? You can read the transcript. That's all you're doing is you're reading for the context of content and then making some notes on it. Or if you're an editor, you can go and get the organizational unit that has all the different clips in it with all the markers that producer and that transcription person did, fire it into Premiere, and there's all your stuff ready to rock. And now you're spending less time having to worry about where the stuff is or where I should even start looking. And you can at least get your framework for edit down quickly and then be creative. Use that free time to be creative. And I think that's the thing is, we're not trying to automate away the creative process. We're trying to make creative people able to not have to do the busy work they don't like doing in the first place. Let's cut down those cycles. Where is that clip of the green Power Ranger helmet. I don't know where it is, man. Like, is it on this storage? Is it on that drive on the shelf? I don't know. Well, let's look through this Excel sheet. And, those sorts of problems are very real. And the more content you create, the bigger that problem becomes. Yep. I'm sure you guys have seen this, well, you definitely have, because you kind of come to the table with it. But, to anybody out there that's watching this and you're just getting started, the problem is not a problem until it becomes a problem, and then it becomes a real big problem. And my kind of metaphor to that is buy the fire extinguisher now, man.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when you need it, you don't want to have to go to the store and get it, because then it's too late. You're losing a lot of time and effort, and the dollars you're spending at that point are not well spent dollars on your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I love this process. Like my brother mentioned, I was the one editing at first, doing all the videos and stuff like that. And before that, we did like events, weddings, all this type of videography. Right? And I remember I would always ask myself, like, what is a system that I can use here in Premiere to, find files from way back if I want to recall them or use them again, right? And I never found honestly, a good way to do that. And I would see, sometimes Gary Vaynerchuk's videos that he had like a video from 2 years ago, making some sort of call out, and then a present video of him, that thing happening, and then he just referring back and forth. And I was like, how do they remember? He even said that 2 years ago, right? Where does that even, how do they find that? And I remember trying to make notes, right, in Adobe, the markers, all these other things, but it never ended in anything. And my first thought when I saw your platform is like, this is it. Like, this is perfect, because now you can just I can look it up with a word, right? I can just put a tag on certain things and then look it up with a word. Boom. I have all the topics about content is profit that I wanted to look for in 2019, right? I can date my things. And so it just becomes, like you said, an incredible collaboration hub that takes away the friction of the things that you don't want to do, that become boring, that become, they take away from the creative process. One of those, for example, was the rendering of 4K files, right? Like working with 4K files, for example. For those that know a little bit of a video, if you have an older computer like mine, when you put a 4K file in there, it explodes, right? Almost explodes. And you need what my brother was talking about, those proxies, right? Those low resolution files to work with. And you guys do that automatically. Like if the file uploads, it automatically turns it into a proxy. And now you can share it with anybody around the world in your team so they can use it as well, instead of, let me use my slow internet and spend 5 hours uploading this 10-minute clip so they can download it on the other side of the world and work with it. Yeah. So you are saving people so much time and so much pain. That is incredible. I absolutely love this whole collaboration hub that you guys brought together. My question that comes to mind with this, right, is, and it kind of ties back to the main topic of the conversation, that was, can you streamline creativity, right? I feel like a lot of people think that when you put processes around, creative work like video media, you lose some aspect of that creativity, right? I personally used to think that way as well. And honestly, I feel like your platform is different. Like it kind of empowers to be more creative, because they're getting more, they're putting more energy in these creative endeavors, right? Instead of doing the boring tasks that you were mentioning before. But I'm curious, from what you've experienced, because you work with a lot of people, right? You have had a very long experience in this world. How does that look like? Like, how does processes around creativity influence this type of stuff?
Well, I mean, I think, automation of the boring stuff is the best thing in the world you can do. And I think I do follow that kind of credo of everybody can code. You just haven't tried yet, and if you get into it, if you like solving puzzles, that's what every day is when you start to work about that. And that's it. Writing code is automation. That's what it is. It doesn't matter what the code is doing. What you're doing is saying, this is a task that if I did it by hand would be tedious.
Yeah.
And if it's something you do once every 2 years, sure, do it by hand. But if it's something you do once a week and it takes you 20 minutes, well, then spend 4 hours automating it, because trust me, you're going to pay dividends to yourself quickly. And that's not in the scope of creativity, right? Hey, I'm cutting together an interview and it's a long cut and I just need to know when the people are talking, right? If I don't have a tool that can kind of pull out transcripts or allow me to make time-based notes from somebody else, well, I'm spending time that I could be actually paying attention to the context of what the person is saying, using my ape brain to, juxtapose the words and put together something of interest. Instead, I'm just looking for the spot where, the camera is actually pointed at something interesting and not the cut scenes or the dead scenes or the, is my mic on? Or, all that sort of stuff. So there's so much opportunity to eliminate the pain points through organization first and then automation second. You can't really automate well without organization, as well. You guys well know with your process, right? Like building the framework first allowed you to scale at the scale you're doing. That's information collection. And then you could get back to the point of actually saying, okay, we got to do these 3 things. And then once those are done, we got to do these 5 things. And then once those are done, we got to do this. You build that pipeline that has nothing to do with the creative aspect in each one of those columns, inside your framework. Absolutely. And if you can cut the time between those in the columns, then you can scale up even faster.
Yeah. This is so fascinating because we had there's a conversation that we quote a ton. We have an episode with Holy Homer, right? And they have about 10 million visitors every single month, right, to the blog. And we were talking about volume on content, on how we publish content and stuff, right? And she was like, "Hey guys, you guys want to know how much I publish, right?" And we're like, "Absolutely, we want to know." And she was like, "We publish about 75 times just on Facebook a day." 75 times a day on Facebook, right? There has to be a process behind that kind of volume, right? And then on the other side, I'm like, oh my God, we're very high volume fans. Like we continue to push the envelope inside of our own content to see where we can take it. And everything has been very positive. That's why we stand behind it, because the data tells us that it's doing good. And then we're like, how was your experience with that kind of stuff, right? And when she was telling us the story, she's like, yeah, I was in this conference, I shared it. Everybody kind of like was horrified by the fact that we were putting 75 pieces of content every single day on Facebook, right? They have a community of about 3 million people. Like it's just insane. And she's like, look, all my decisions are based on data, right? And obviously there's a process to create this, right? So after that conversation, Fonzie and I started thinking, we're like, look, I mean, we're living kind of something similar, right? We're about 7 or 10 per day, depending, right? In the platforms. But then we're like, for us, it has worked. And we came to the conclusion that is either for the capacity that they cannot execute at that level, right? Or the distribution capacity. They don't have the systems in place, right? So the second we became organized with the things that we create, right? We know exactly what we're creating. We know when are we creating. We know how that's going to look like after it's created, right? We have an output, a desired output, right? Then that's easy, right? We can walk back and be like, okay, what is the system that I can put in place? What is the conveyor belt that I can put this specific content on it that allows me to kind of exploit it as much as possible, right? So now we have resources, right? We have time, we have people. What are the resources that I have today? And this ties back to what we talk about in the publishing pyramid. And then what is the tool that's going to allow me to leverage this, right? So for some people, our teams, but when we started doing it ourselves, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the resources, we don't have the knowledge on different softwares that we use, right? So our capacity is very limited to execute at that level. Hence, we create this idea that it cannot be done. Yeah. But guess what? When we run into, for example, frameworks like Content Momentum, for example, and tools like yours, like Iconik, it's beautiful because if we marry both together, then you have the leverage to be able to create this high volume and serve your audience, right? So for those listening, right, this is a very cool opportunity to revisit what we're doing. Are we really serving our audience? Because if we don't get our message out there, we're not going to be able to help them, right? So we're doing them as a service by not doing it. And again, tools like, for example, you guys with Iconik and the frameworks that we create in Content Momentum help us do that. So obviously, shameless plug, 100%. I gotta say it, but it's because the feedback has been great, right? And we got to look at those resources and what is our knowledge too, right? And just so you know, for somebody that knows zero coding, we've been able to use this platform no problem. Like the team is having a blast and they're like in love with the possibilities that we can do.
I mean, like Mike, like you said at the beginning, something that one of the elements that makes a good software is that intuition, right, when you use it. And I think your platform does just that, right? I think the team has picked up really quick at using it. My brother, who, you know, he's like a caveman with anything tech, right? So it's great stuff, man, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Mike, what are some cool examples? Because you deal with a lot of creators, right? You sent me this incredible case study with Spotify. You guys, I think they have about 1,000 people collaborating, like in their pipeline, or more. I think it's like 1,200, something like that. That is an incredible amount of, like, the size of that team is massive, right? So obviously, could we dive a little bit into how they're using that, or can we dive into a little bit of examples on how other content creators are using this, right? Because obviously our framework is not the only one. We love our framework, obviously, but there's others, right? So what are some cool things that you've been seeing around the content creation side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is just empowering people to build that basis of organization. I would guess probably 70% of our customer base has never had a tool like this before, right? They're not coming from an experience level where they know that something like this even exists. Yeah. And for the longest time, that was because it just wasn't attainable to, you know, small businesses. It was an expensive tool. It was, you know, okay, cool, you can walk in the door, but here's, you know, purchasing a new car minimum to get a tool like this. And, you know, a small business that's scraping by or just growing or just getting founded, you don't have that kind of capital to spend, you know, or even you don't have the time and market to even get the loan to spend the capital, right? Like even if you wanted to. So I think at its core, it's just the ability to see people that before we're doing these broken workflows of, you know, whatever they were comfortable with, like Dropbox or FedExing a drive across the country or, you know, those sorts of things, and kind of watching how much faster they can do what they were already doing without having to think too much about it, right? Put the stuff into Iconik however the heck you want, and then find one thing it does well for you, and it instantly becomes worth it. Even if it can do 75 different things, it's like if you buy the Swiss Army knife and you only ever open it to open cans, it's still a good tool, right? And so that's where I think at the baseline where we've seen the most success is just building a structure for organization for people to save time. And then honestly, long term, that allows you, and you guys are going to start to find this pretty soon, it's the remonetization, right? Content reprofit. Profit and reprofit. If you can find that stuff, you know, further down the road, like you said, hey, how do you remember who said what 2 years ago? Well, if it is searchable in a quick and easy way, and if you put a little bit of effort into organizing it up front, well, then when the greatest hits album time is ready, when you're doing well enough to where that information is able to be run a second time, you know? Yeah. Absolutely. Your ability to remonetize is so much higher if you have a tool that allows you to go back and search and that sort of stuff.
Not just that. I mean, the trust level that we can put in with the audience, right? For example, that video that Fonzie was mentioning with Gary Vee, right? Like the fact that he was saying that like 5 years ago, right? And then we come back and it's the same thing. Like just the trust level that we can have with our audience. I don't know why our camera is going crazy. Focus. There we are. It woke up. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And one of the things that we've been harping on this a lot is we gotta measure our capacity. Like, what is the time that we're investing in this thing, right? And these are conversations that we have with our customers every single day, or the people that want to kind of jump in on content momentum. Is like, well, how much time are you investing in categorizing this content, like making sure that it's available for a future process, right? We have a process called Value Index that we go back and people don't have to touch anything because of a tool like yours. It allows us to index what are we talking about, how are we talking about it, what are the topics, right? And we can always go back as a safety net, right? And then people don't account for that time that they try either learning, finding a team, finding a process that works for them, right? And I think that's so important because if that's the starting point, if you're scaling your business or if you're scaling your content, you need to know where are you investing your time and resources to make sure that you can find a solution for that. What is the process that goes behind it, right? And that's how we started too. And there's people out there that do it really, really well, but sometimes people cannot see past, like, I just want to learn it, I just want to do it myself. I'm like, okay, sounds good, but like document that and then measure it, because there's going to be a point in time where your resources are going to be higher and you're not going to go past those resources because you continue to do that. So you got to give that to somebody else, or you got to use the leverage as a tool, like or use as a tool use a tool as a leverage to make sure that we can either get that faster or teach somebody else to do it. And I think that's something that we missed all the time. We don't measure those inputs that we put in either in our business or in our content. And it has to be something that has to be done very, very early in time so we can optimize.
Well, and I think too, there's something to be said here that if you're thinking in your mind when you're working on a business and you're growing it and you're thinking, man, there's gotta be a better way. There always is. Your business might not be at the scale yet to do it a better way, but starting to look for it at that time is important. If you're a small business and you're using a small accounting system and you're like, man, this is killing me right now, I need to start looking at the big stuff. And then they may come back and say, you know what, this is way out of our price range, but now you know where your baseline is and where you got to get to. It's measurement and goal setting, right? Like It's no different than if you're lifting weights or losing weight or, doing anything like that. If you don't have a baseline of knowledge of what is available, then you're going to self-limit. And I think you guys have more or less said that in the last few statements, right? If you're not aware of where you can go, you naturally put a ceiling in place over yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you put the ceiling in place over yourself, you believe that's the real ceiling, even though it's not. Yeah. And and then you are going to run into actual problems. It's I found that it's much easier in the scope of business to kind of ask for forgiveness versus permission when you're testing out a new idea, and push that limit and see where it goes. Because if you just say, this is the box we live in, this is what we do, and some great opportunity walks in front of you, you're going to miss it. Yeah. It's going to fly right past you because you're not thinking outside, like literally thinking outside the box, right? Yeah. Like I know it sounds cliche, but it's the reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it goes back to where you said that lesson that you learned, right? Is know what you don't know, right? At the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, I'm loving all this conversation. I think you're on fire today, by the way.
Man, thank you.
You're feeling good. I can tell you're feeling good today.
I know. Here's the thing. I've been using the tool, right? And it's not like I've invested a crazy amount of time on it. Like, it's just like, it's very intuitive and it's solving a problem that we had, right? Like, and this is why I feel so passionate because, and here's the thing, the problem that we had was time, right? Because we have, and this is a little behind the scenes on how our team works, right? They work by sales, right? And different people tackle different parts of this process that were in different places. So it will take time for them to either communicate or like putting all together in one place. And now everything is just in that one place. And the transcriptions is what it does. You said that one feature, right? That one feature that's going to work for you guys. Like for us, that was the first thing. There's going to be many more coming, obviously. But the fact that we can get that transcriptions in minutes, like it's just incredible, right? So for those out there, right, creating content, please like let us know if you have any questions. But here's my I guess my advice, right? Not advice. Let's say people come to us, for example, and they're like, man, I want to scale my content, right? That's one of the things that we do, and they can go to other companies too, and there's no problem, right? But then we scale content through the framework, which is a M2M, right? The content momentum service, like you can learn it, right? That's a way to do it. And this is the beautiful thing. That's the starting point. What you said, like know what you don't know. Once we learn this, right? Perfect. We can start implementing. Guess what? That framework is going to evolve and that's okay. Well, guess what? If you have the team, if you have the processes, if you have the software that can help you scale without any friction, perfect. Let's do it. We have a couple customers that we call it content evolution, right? That have evolved over time. They come in, they start with one framework. Sweet, that's the base. We master that framework, and then we're like, what do we want to do next? It's not about like, what can I do next? Like we can do anything, right? But it's like, what do I want to do, right? And then after that, it becomes really, really fun because we're free of that ceiling that you mentioned earlier, right? So it's incredible. So I encourage everybody, start thinking about not just your business, but your content, like. Because your business is a framework for somebody else. It's a solution. You're providing a solution, right? So inside of your own content, right? What is your framework? How do we scale this? And then do I actually have the resources and tools that can help me do that? So I'm very confident to say that you do have both of those solutions here with you in this interview today. You have Mike with Iconik, which I highly, highly recommend. Go check him out.
Links are going to be in the description.
Links are going to be in the description. We're going to put all in there. And then if you're interested in our framework on content momentum, on how these two dudes can publish more than 400 pieces of content and have an amazing time having conversations with people like you, Mike, right? Come to us. Send us a DM. And
links are going to be in the description.
Links are going to be in the description. We actually have a workshop coming up on May 1st. So let us know if you want to be a part of it. So, Mike, I really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the discussion. Is there anything else that we might have been missing, or like anything that you want to add?
I would say like the last thing, just when you're starting to look at tools, right? Not just in general, this is not just our stuff, but I am a person looking to do tools. In the software world, I highly recommend looking for things that are open. And by open, I mean have programmatic access on the back end, have strong APIs. It's a very modern concept, and a lot of modern software has that. But the documentation and availability of APIs and how well they're developed means that you're also not hamstrung by the manufacturer themselves to go do crazy fun things. Because we've definitely seen our customer base build all sorts of neat, like very bespoke workflows to their business that no manufacturer is ever going to make for them. But because the data is there and the access to it is there, they can automate all sorts of stuff that's just painful without having to go to the shelf and pull something off the rack, right? They're building it themselves and empowering yourself to be able to build things in the future is worth it, even if you don't know how to right away, because eventually if you're successful, you're going to get to the scale where that is going to be important. And you want to plan, you got to figure you're going to succeed. Walk into the door every day that I am going to succeed, not what if I succeed, and make your decisions, to a certain extent. I mean, like, there is a limit to that one, but make sure that you enter into any sort of like thought process around that.
Yeah.
With that mentality in place. And that in the world of software, it means openness so that you can interact with it at a level that you're not, dependent upon somebody else to tell you how you have to interact with it.
Yeah. I mean, this goes hands in hand with control your message, right? Like on our side of things, control your own message, that you don't depend on somebody else. What is your own voice, right? We make that transition from consumers to creators, and that's the thing that we're doing. And then if we back it up with, the tools that allow us to express ourselves at that level is incredible. This is maybe like not one-on-one story, but we had I remember listening the other day a story about Epson, right? And they have these printers. And when you mentioned openness, my mind went to that story, right? So this lady bought her printer, right? Got like the ink cartridges that came with the printer, right? And then when it came time to refill these cartridges, she was like, oh my gosh, these are so expensive, right? Again, closed, right? And she's like, I want to go to a different option, right? So she went and she got different like generic ones that also work in that printer. When she put them in there, the pictures were coming out all messed up, right? The colors weren't mixing, all that stuff. And she's like calling Epson, right? And they might ban or whatever. I don't know if they see it. Sorry, man. But she called the company and she's like, hey, these cartridges are not working. And the recommendation was like, go buy the Epson cartridges. Again, closed. There's no options to go move from there, right? And she's like, no, it's so expensive. I don't want to go do that, right? Well, guess what? What happened was that this company blocked, like they released this update to all their printers that they cannot accept generic cartridges because they were so cheap, right? And one of their highest profit margin products was the ink, because now these customers are in jail, or they're like confined to that one option. So again, like this is a different environment, and this person had a very like hard experience with them. She's still fighting for this stuff, right? But it generated this like flood of comments of people that were unhappy with that, right? So again, in your business, in the tools that you're looking for, is this a trade? Is this something that's happening? We gotta be, open eye and make sure that we define those options that we're allowed to grow with, that have different solutions on the back end that we can build upon, right? Don't be like Epson, right? Provide those, if you're a business, provide those opportunities and
be like Iconik.
Be like Iconik. and then that's a really cool indicator, because in our world, like people were constantly looking for those tools that we can build upon and expand our businesses, and that's something really cool that I personally never thought of, right? Like maybe we're not at that level yet, right? And with the call with you guys, you mentioned it, right? Like, hey, at this moment, maybe not, but in the future, right? We might have somebody in that builds custom flows for different things and automations and different things, right? So super awesome, Mike, super fascinating. Thank you so much for coming and sharing everything about you guys and the awesome work that you guys do. Fonzie, anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you, man. It's amazing to hear kind of like the behind the scenes and all the work that you guys are putting and what you guys are building for, the creative people out there. I think this is, like you mentioned, everything reminded me a lot of kind of like the Salesforce story that they used to sell those, CRMs to big companies, and it was like $1 million packages. So only the big companies could have them. And then Salesforce came in and he's like, we're going to revolutionize this. And they started doing the SaaS CRM. And your story honestly reminds me a lot of that. I think you guys are coming to disrupt this medium. And I think you guys are going to be great at it. And I mean, you guys are already doing it. So it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast, catching up and talking about this stuff. I love talking about, kind of the growth strategies and just the fun that it is. If you're having fun in your own business, it's one of the best things in the world. And not everybody gets lucky enough to be able to do that. But I really think that almost anybody can. You just have to have a little bit of faith in yourself. And again, you got to take a little risk every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
To make that happen.
Absolutely. So, Fonzie, can we streamline creativity?
Yeah, I think we do. Of course we do. I think it's, you got to find the right tools to support it, right? And not the right tools. I think, yes, the right tools is part of it, but also the right environment and the right people you do it, because I'm sure you can get some people in these tools that might try to suppress that creativity, but the tool allows for it, which is the incredible part. So
yeah,
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see where we're going to be a year from now using Iconik, right? We're going to have to take one of your workshops or something where we learn to code into the platform so we can develop our own automations and make it all amazing.
Well, I'll throw the little plug out there, and there'll be a link to this. I'll toss you guys too. But we do actually, I try to do it once a month, and we do little hackathons, which is just on Twitch. I live stream the whole thing, and we learn from scratch, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing when we start. I have an idea, and then we take the idea, and sometimes it's successful, and sometimes it's partially successful. And one time it was kind of a big flop, and it didn't get anything done. But it's learning by doing, and it's learning by doing together, and the tools and where I go because I'm not classically trained in this stuff. I'm not allowed to touch the production code, behind the scenes. That wouldn't happen. But I've built processes. We use Iconik internally for a lot of stuff. And I've built automations around processes for us as not the engineer, as not the DevOps guy, as not the product manager, because I saw opportunities for business improvement in what we did. So I went and I hacked it together using our API and open tools that are available out there, and other tools APIs like, Zoom awesome. And Asana and Slack and you name it, right? Like there's a million other tools out there that have great interoperability. Get out there and do it. So join us when we do those things. Sometimes it's fun, and it's nice to stream to more than like 2 people. So the more, right?
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
I love it. I know we have some people here in Twitch commenting, and so thank you so much. Again, remind us of what days are we doing this, because we're gonna be there for sure. So
we try to do it on the last Friday of every month, because I wish I had more opportunity to do it more frequently. And it's just Iconik_IO is our Twitch ID. So go ahead and sub to us. You'll get a notification when we go live, because you definitely want to turn on the notifications, because it's not that frequently that we do it. But I normally go, if we can do it, we do it for 4 or 5 hours, and we go and rip through a problem, and we map out the whole problem. We diagram the whole thing, and then we just try to solve it.
Incredible.
That's amazing.
And we take input from our customers too. So everything I've done so far on that channel has been something a customer has asked me for that the product doesn't do, like just out of the box. And it was like, hey, can I solve this problem in 4 hours that would solve, God knows how many hours of time over the next 6 months for anybody, right?
Yeah.
And then and it's all there available for everybody to learn.
How can people request those things? It come to mind a couple things that we might have to send your way to join you on those
hey, man,
Twitch streams.
For the live hackathons, here's my rule is, you can have all my code for free, but I'm the sales guy. So
yes.
you know what you're getting into at that point. But yeah, we actually on LinkedIn too. I'll post every now and then, and we'll take feedback. And feel free to tweet at us. You know, if you have an idea for one of them, you know, we're all about taking that in. I have a little list of things that people have asked for, and then I just do and by research I mean like 10 to 15 minutes of research before we go live, because if I did more than that, it'd be a little disingenuous, right? Like the whole point of it is let's see what we can do with no knowledge, and we take it from there. So.
Incredible. I want to highlight what you just said a little bit and kind of like debrief it for the business owner, right? Like you guys are taking active feedback. You guys are taking active requests and actually demonstrating, right? And this is a very important process for those looking for creativity or inspiration. Go and execute it and go watch these things, right? Of the tools that you're watching, of the services that you're doing, of your coaches. Go find it, because there's going to be something there that you might take home with you and then execute on your own process, and it's going to change everything. That's how we've been able to do it. We're actually releasing a show on Facebook, because another show, by the way, not just Content is Profit, we're going to be unlocking content frameworks, because that's the thing that we create with our clients, right? So just like you guys, you walk through your process, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, uncovering these frameworks from people that are there every single day. So for the business owner, go participate, go create your own too. These incredible lessons that Mike is sharing with us from his own business that we can apply in our everyday.
And take action, like you said, without that much research, right? Like we are going to learn about it, just jump into it, and you learn as you go, because I think that's the best way to do it, honestly. Mike, I have a very selfish question for you before we leave. If I want to learn how to code, right, what is the best place for me to learn?
Honestly, I mean, like at this point, there's two languages. If you're doing it for yourself and for your business, I would learn either Python or JavaScript, because those are the two most popular right now, in the sense that there's the most information and most community around them. Not that, and I'm a Python guy through and through. I love it. I can do all sorts of fun little stuff with it. Code Academy's got some free courses for both online. But Stack Overflow is your best friend too. And and honestly, there are streams out there. On random Friday nights, man, you would be amazed at how many guys out there are like working on little code projects on Raspberry Pis on Twitch and have 4 guys watching them. Go join in their thing, man, and watch what they're doing, because they're learning with you at the same time. And it's all out there. It's really a matter of, I first would say, try to figure out a problem you want to solve and make it simple, right? Like it doesn't have to be a big giant problem. I want to take this, CSV file, and I want to find all the lines that have this customer email address in them. That's a great first little project, because it teaches you how to do some stuff, and it's not necessarily practical, but it builds a basis of knowledge, right? You gotta crawl before you can walk, sort of thing. Find little bite-sized things you think you can take care of.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. I've actually had the thought a while back. I'm like, man, I would love to code. Like, I think it's such an important skill nowadays. But yeah, honestly, I have no idea where to start. I kind of did a little bit of research there, not too much. So.
I hope it goes better than your guitar project.
I know.
Okay.
Mike, that's the other thing why I need to go and hang out with you, so I can learn some real guitar playing, man.
Yeah. He decided I wanted to play guitar, and he's been collecting dust.
Hey, no. I did it for a few months, and then
moved on to a new task. Tennis.
Moved on to tennis.
Okay. Oh, man. All right, Mike, we got 2 last questions. We can do it real quick. What is one action point that somebody can do today to get that momentum, right? We're talking about newish entrepreneurs. People are starting to publish. People are starting to build those processes, right? What is something that they can do today to start getting that momentum? I mean,
for me, the one thing I've always found super useful, and it's so cheap to do, is buy yourself a big ass whiteboard and hang it on the wall someplace. A big one. I'm talking like 6 foot by 8 foot, and use it to document your ideas. And because it's not like your notes on your computer where you make the next one and you forget about the last one, or it gets moved out of the way. It's there. It's in front of you. It's constant. You can't get away from it. And then commit yourself to knocking stuff off that list. Draw out the idea, draw an outcome you want to have, and then work towards it. Because, if you don't have any sort of measurement towards more medium-term or long-term goals, or learning something, or doing a project, or then you become reactive in your business, and that's death. It's death if you become reactive.
I love it. We've talked about that being reactive and proactive. It has been a topic lately around content and sales too, but I agree with you, like in life and with ideas. And what a great action point of having the whiteboard. We have a big whiteboard right here. I wouldn't say is
right there.
I wouldn't say it's a 6 feet and 8 feet one, but
it flips. It has two sides.
It has two sides.
Okay.
So maybe if we join those two together, we add them up.
Yeah.
So you guys each get one side. Is that the idea?
We each get one side. Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely, dude. Mike, where would you guys be if people don't publish?
I mean, so you know what the weird thing is that even if people don't publish, we've got a significant amount of customers that are private, right? I guess that's still publishing, but in the sense that, you have to do training videos for the guys that drive your trucks or sweep your floors or, do whatever it is that you got to do inside your business. There's video is proven to be one of the best ways to learn things and engage people. Wow. And so video, even if all the big platforms disappeared tomorrow and the streaming services disappeared, it's still the way that people learn effectively en masse. It's not better than a teacher, but it's so cost effective versus a human being sitting with you and helping you, which is always the best.
Yeah.
That it's not going anywhere and it's only growing. And that's what we see. Like every business is a media business. It does not matter if you sell ice cream or if you're making movies, you're a media business because somewhere in your information supply chain, video has become a tool you use. Guaranteed.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who you are.
Absolutely. This is so good. That was so good. That was not an answer I was expecting, but it turned out to be way better.
That was way better.
That was way better. Oh man. And then, obviously, if you guys do those kind of video and you want to leverage for any kind of exposure, just give us a call. Give BIZBROS a call, Content Momentum, and we can help you do that with our M2M framework. Happy to do so. Mike, thank you for allowing us to obviously share your message. Thank you for providing your platform for us to execute for us and for all the clients that we currently have. You're just helping us make so much better the process and serve at a higher degree, man. Thank you so much.
You guys are making this world a better place.
Absolutely.
Dude, you guys are doing a killer job too. It's been super fun. And, I wish more people were out there talking honestly, but having enjoyment about, small business. Because almost everybody wants the let's make it big and then get the Lambo and the McLaren and call it a day sort of thing, right? Like, I'm all about let's make our business fun, right?
Yeah.
Make your day-to-day fun. Because then you don't necessarily hey, maybe I just get a Porsche instead of the Lambo and I'm still really happy with everything else that's going on, right?
Yeah. So. We've mentioned that priorities change, right? They evolve. Not gonna lie, we started there. We were like, let's make some money, right? And then we quickly realized the wall was coming and hit us in the face real fast, and priorities started to change, and we started to serve, and we started to listen, we started to enjoy the process, and then now the things are completely different. FONZI might still want a Jeep, just saying, but
he wants me to get a Jeep. But yeah, man, Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was amazing. I'm sure we'll have you here another time and we'll talk more about some other stuff. I mean, dude, I feel like you're a man with many talents, so this conversation could go anywhere. Yeah.
Mike, where can people connect with you? Where can people find more about Iconik? Where should we send them?
Yeah, so Iconik.io, and it's Iconik, ICONIK.io, is our website. You can find me on LinkedIn. I got rid of all the other socials other than, Twitch, because I am on that streaming from time to time. But if you want to hit me up for business stuff, we got a Twitter. It's just Iconik.io as well. Facebook, same thing. So it's Iconik.io is all our socials. Search for it. You'll see the black ring with our logo in the middle, and hit us up there. I'm watching that stuff. Our marketing guys are watching that stuff, and we're still a small enough company where guarantee if you shout out me or anybody else that over there, everybody's going to know about it. So we're not some big nameless, faceless machine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Mike, I have a question. Do you only stream the hackathons on Twitch, or do you stream video games too?
So I only do the hackathons right now because I'm like a garbage Fortnite player, and so why would anybody want to watch me? All they'd see is bad plays and then me swearing really loudly. So it's not good. That's the big thing about content, right? It's either got to be, you have to be better than everybody else, or you got to be entertaining, and I'm neither.
Yeah, we've
we're actually at a very similar place in video games too.
I feel like we can be entertaining.
I don't know. I think you could be entertaining.
Let the audience vote. Let the audience tell us if we're Rocket League guys.
Rocket League is Fortnite was rough to get into.
Rough
for sure.
to get into, for sure. All right, guys. Well, Mike, again, thank you. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and follow us on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is right. And if you find this episode impactful,
yes,
please don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.